Season 3, let's go. In season 3 of Trailer Park Boys, we are already exploring different scenarios for the boys to get out of jail into, now that we've fully covered the baseline in the first two series. At the beginning of this season, the boys are getting out of jail with a little bit of money, okay? And we see how having a little bit of cash flow affects their mindset. Let's talk about Julian, okay? For the last, two series, Julian has been keeping Lahey and Randy's sexuality secret. Because in this season, they kind of accidentally get outed. We never get to understand whether Julian is keeping this secret as leverage, whether he intends to use this against them at some point, or whether he keeps it out of, being genuine, okay? And he does stuff like return Randy's barbecue when Ricky steals it because it's got the mushy love note of Mr. Lahey on the bottom. That's a sweet thing to do, but we don't know if he was just keeping the secret for now so that he could use it against them later. Julian has a little bit of a relationship this season with a girl named Erica, who just so happens to be a cop. In order to be in this relationship, he has to lie to Erica a lot. He does not let her onto the fact that he is a criminal in any kind of capacity. She catches him at it all the time. But obviously, through a combination of Julian's smooth talking, Erica's, wanting to believe him because she likes him. He kind of convinces her in a way that it's all Ricky's fault and that he's just looking out for Ricky, who's this bad, uncontrollable criminal. Julian just keeps getting sucked into all this stuff, right? And we see by the end that Julian can't keep up this facade because we all know he's just as bad as Ricky, okay? The bit where Julian chats up Erica, where he's been in trouble with her, and then he's basically says, oh, it sounds like you're chatting me up, and she's like, what are you insinuating? And then basically she's like, let's go on a date. That's one of my favorite Julian moments because it's oh, here's Julian talking to a woman, and it doesn't matter that she's a cop because he's Julian. Obviously, she's going to want to go out with him, right? And it goes exactly the way that you would expect it to go. And I love that. And I love Julian's, smarmy character. I love that he's a ladies' man. These are the things that I like about him. And this got me thinking, this moment, this fact that I'm happy for him, that he got a date. I was you would think after all the things that I've said about Julian so far that I wouldn't like him and I wouldn't want him to get by in life. I think the essential thing with Julian is that morally, karmically, okay, he suffers enough. Okay, he goes to jail and he does his time for a lot of the crimes that he does, and for the little things that he does, his personal life suffers, okay? And we can see an example of that here with Erica, because in the end, of course, he can't hide the fact that he's a criminal. He can't be in a genuine relationship with her if he's hiding things about himself. And also, if he has this lifestyle that completely disagrees with the type of person she is, a law enforcement officer. Said several times that Julian does really selfless things for other people, but usually he has a really selfish reason for doing it, some way that it will benefit him, but at the end of the day he has helped those people, so how can I really fault him? There's a fine balance that goes into Julian's character, and it goes to show that it's just amazingly written. And as well as that, I think the fact that I can sit here and question Julian's motives and, question whether he's keeping the Lahey and Randy secret for his own gain or because he's a good guy. The fact that I can question that means that Julian is this 3D character who has motives and intricate ways of thinking that I could never understand, okay? And that's the fun thing about Julian. Even though as a person I think he's morally reprehensible, as a character he's great. Julian's actually one of the people who goes to jail at the end of this season, despite technically not being involved in the final big act that gets everybody arrested. And even though, he wasn't guilty in this particular case, I still felt like he deserved it. And we'll get a little bit more into the finale of the show in a little bit. The whole season is building up to them going on this cruise and saving up money for this cruise. And he buys a ticket for his new little girlfriend, Erica, and not for Ricky, even though we know Ricky is a total disorganized bastard and will not be able to sort this ticket for himself. I think that was a dick move on Julian's part, bros before hoes and all that, right? Let's move on to Ricky, because this is one of my favorite seasons for Ricky. He's spent 2 seasons being told that he's a fucking loser, okay? And at the beginning of this season, he gets out of jail with money, and even though that doesn't go particularly well for him, he then gets a job as assistant trailer park supervisor. He gets really cocky about it, okay? He starts lording it over everyone, especially Randy. And I can't blame him. After everybody telling him that he wouldn't be able to do that job or any job, I think he really deserved having that moment of cockiness and being able to give everybody shit about it, basically. Even though he's now in this position of power and technically allied with Lahey, Ricky still doesn't sell out Julian. He blames like Corey and Trevor for the bootlegging that Julian is doing in the park, I believe. Just yet more examples of why Ricky is the perfect friend. He is so loyal. He literally sacrifices his entire like way of life and like making money in order to make sure that his friend's fucking illegal little scam is fine so that Julian can go on a fucking cruise. And that's all I have to say about Ricky, because he's perfect and he's never done anything wrong. He does have some iconic moments in this series. For example, the court scene. You know the one, I can't speak without swearing.
You do have a right to defend yourself, so proceed, but please remember to watch your language.
Look, I can't speak without swearing, and I've only got my grade 10, and I haven't had a cigarette since I've been arrested, and I'm ready to fucking snap. So I'd like to make a request under the People's Freedom of Choices and Voices Act that I be able to smoke and swear in your courtroom. Because if I can't smoke and swear, I'm fucked. And so are all these guys.
Everybody loves that one. One of my favourite Rickyisms of all time is when, you know, they catch Lahey and Randy in the trailer and Lahey's dressed up as an explorer and Ricky says, "Why are you dressed like Indianapolis Jones?" This is a big season for Bubbles because he kind of only came into the foreground of everything last season. This is the season where it gets a little bit more character development and we see a little bit more of a fierce side to Bubbles in this, which is one of my favourite things about him, is this like passionate, a little bit angry side of him, okay? And we see this the most in the Rush episode where he's trying to get the Rush tickets and Lahey's fucking with him and they end up having to like sneak into the concert. Bubbles is absolutely hilarious when he's riled up and it's an absolutely epic moment when he shuts everybody up with the guitar when they're all arguing backstage. It gets to be the techie for the Rush band at the end of the episode, and I think this is just such a wholesome episode. If you remember, I said Bubbles is like the gateway drug into Trailer Park Boys, so like the first time I was watching this series I was really just in it for Bubbles. He's just such a cute and wholesome character. You don't want anything bad to happen to him, and the fact that he not only got to go and see his favourite band but got to like be a part of the performance, you just feel really great for him, and I love that. I still didn't like Lahey this season the first time around. I especially didn't like the fact that he was fucking with Bubbles when he bought all the Rush tickets and like made Randy steal his answer on the radio thing. I thought it's just so unnecessary. They, especially at this point, for Lahey to be messing with Bubbles, because Bubbles, we all know, okay, that Bubbles has never done anything wrong in his life. Every single one of us would take a bullet for that man. No cap. We can see though, you know, Lahey is made to be a lot more sympathetic in this series, but also a lot more likeable. He gets his trailer wrecked when Trevor drives Ricky's car into it, and then as a result of that, Randy ends up outing him to everyone, like fully against his will. And we see that like this wasn't something that he really wanted to do and that he kind of did more for Randy, because when Julian tries to, you know, say let us off with the like crashing into your trailer, bro, Lahey's like, Julian, like everybody knows I'm gay, I've got to get some vindication for this, bro, you know. Then we find out that it's the anniversary of when he got fired from the police force, and in that very same episode the case where he was keeping his old police uniform gets smashed by none other than fucking Ricky and the boys. We can see this, all of this shit has like been piling on Lahey for so long. And he just gets fucking sick of it, bro. And I think his obsession with the boys as the series goes on, it's always been there in a small way, but I think it really like comes to a head here. His obsession is like a result of not only the drink, but just this psychological damage that he blames on the boys, because they were kind of the catalyst for it all happening here with his uniform getting broken shit, okay? Lahey is also one of the people who goes to jail at the end of this season. And I think that's great. I think that jail is the ultimate punishment for him, right? Because he has lorded it over these boys for so long that they're like absolute reprobates for being in and out of jail all the time, and that he's so much better than them. And then he ends up in jail, and it doesn't matter that he hasn't technically done anything wrong. Like, he's got that mark on him now, like he's been to jail. And as an ex-police officer as well, that's got a sting of it, right? He holds himself in such high regard, bro, that it's got to be some serious punishment for him, right? From me as a viewer's perspective, it's also the ultimate karma for him, right? Because I'm on the boys' side. Okay, we're all on the boys' side. We don't want Lahey fucking with the boys. And so now that he's been to jail, it kind of puts them on more even footing. That's a sneaky one on behalf of the writers, to be fair. Put them on the same level, karmically, for next season. It opened me up, bro, to liking Lahey, okay? As well as the other stuff that they did this season, so... You know, they manipulated me. They manipulated my mind, bro. Lahey has some iconic lines this season. One of my personal favourite shitisms is in this season.
Traded for a carton of smokes, you stupid idiot.
Yeah, Julian, Jim Lahey here.
Fuck up, my friend.
Yeah. Public idiot number one. He's gone one step too far. We're in the eye of a shitacane here, Julian. Ricky is a low shit sister.
This is the season where he's like, I'm watching you like a shithawk. Like a shithawk.
I'm watching you, Julian. Like a shithawk. Like a shithawk. Come on, Randy.
Randy, fantastic as always. You know, he outs himself this season, and it's really funny because like the outing is so wholesome from Randy's perspective. Like he has this whole speech about like it's okay that we're gay and that we like to like dress up and do like weird shit when we're having sex. I don't know. He has this whole wholesome coming out moment, but obviously at the same time he's outing Jim, who's not having a good time about it. And it's this whole comedy tragedy thing about the series that I love so much as well, because if you look at it from Jim's perspective, it's like this kind of, oh my god, awkward moment. But if you look at it from Randy's perspective, it's this really heartwarming, cute moment. This is the season as well where Randy's walkie-talkie is a symbol, okay, and it's discussed within the episode, which I love, okay, but it's also like it's a thing throughout the series. Is this walkie-talkie is a symbol of Mr. Leahy's like respect and love for Randy. And so in the episode where Ricky takes Randy's job, when Randy gets put on relief by Bob, Randy gets annoyed when Ricky has the walkie-talkie and he gets like jealous of Ricky, and it leads to all sorts of escapades. Something about their relationship that doesn't work, even though they are so cute together, is that, you know, Leahy doesn't understand Randy's need for that respect as a show of love, if you get me, as a sign of like Leahy takes him seriously. He wants to be respected by him, bro, as we all do by our partners. Some notable episodes from this season. Obviously, episode 1. I personally really love this episode. I think it's an excellent start to a season. They come out of jail with money. Julian buys Bubbles a new shed because obviously it got destroyed as a result of his and Ricky's escapades last season. This is one of the few things that Julian does in the entire series that I probably would believe is entirely genuine. I think he really does probably feel bad about the fact that Bubbles suffered for his actions, and he wants to genuinely make up for that. But I also think that buying that shed probably didn't take much out of his budget, so it probably didn't take much. I love the fact that Rick ends up spending money on everybody but himself. Like, he buys himself like a new tracksuit and he gets drunk and stuff, but he also gets all of his friends drunk, and he buys J-Rock some stuff, and he buys Bubbles his go-kart, and he spends money on his family as well. He wants to like splurge and like show everybody that he's somebody worth fucking knowing, and it's like, you don't have to show off for people like that, bro, you know what I mean? He's doing it in like a big-hearted way as well, which I like. This episode ends with, so Ricky can choose between getting himself a trailer and buying his young daughter a load of encyclopedias. And because he's dumb and he thinks that these encyclopedias are somehow going to save Trinity, his daughter, from a life of crime, he chooses the encyclopedias, and as a result he has to kiss Leahy's ass because they made this whole deal about him not being able to get the money and stuff. Frustrates me no end, but I'm slowly finding through doing reviews like this that I love frustrating characters and books and films and things that make me want to scream and shake the characters. That just seems to be something that I like. I love the fact that even though it's, here we go, it's a little bit backwards wholesome, even though it was the complete wrong thing to do, Lucy sees Ricky do this and she understands that he's done this for his daughter and his daughter's education and his daughter's future. And she, because she knows who Ricky is and she knows how his brain works, bro, she appreciates him. And she's like, big up, Ricky. I'm not going to stop you from seeing your daughter, and let's go bang in the back of the car. I don't know. You already know by now that I love a bit of Ricky and Lucy, and I think that's one of those moments between them where I'm like, they understand each other. They're perfectly suited to each other because she respects him for that move. He kissed Leahy's ass and spent all of his money on a load of useless books instead of a place to live. And she's like, that's my man. Yeah, I do actually just love this episode because it's so Ricky-centric, right? Because all the iconic moments are Ricky. Like, I'm gonna give you $100 to fuck off. Obviously, every time it gets to the weekend, I'm like, I'm getting drunk as fuck tonight. The new tracksuit he buys himself is absolutely iconic and it's gorgeous and it looks great on him. And also, just on a personal level, he's gonna get rid of his car in this episode. And the way that he talks to his car when it's breaking down and moaning on him, girl. Episode 4. is an iconic episode, okay? This is the J-Rock episode of this season, and this is I Was Getting Changed, motherfucker. J-Rock in general, okay, because I don't really think I'm gonna like get into much else about J-Rock as the series go on. He's so much a part of the trailer park. I cannot even explain to you. You would think that this weird little white boy rapper would be like this little side character that you could do without, but the lack of J-Rock in an episode is saddening, okay, to everyone involved. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I think everybody from a kind of small town can agree that there was always that guy growing up who wanted to be a rapper, and J-Rock kind of like probably reminds us all of that guy. But J-Rock's actually got bars, bro. J-Rock saying, "Mum, I'm white."
What's wrong? Why are you dressed like that?
Why would I be dressed any differently, Mom? It's who I am. It's hard to admit it, but Mom, I'm white.
Is probably one of the most iconic scenes of the series, and the bit where she's like giving him this what's supposed to be a wholesome speech, but she's talking about how she likes to sleep with black guys. Love that comedy gold. The actual wholesome bit that makes me cry every time, bro. Like if you cry every time when J-Rock's mum says, "Who's the microphone assassin?" The next notable episode is episode 7, which is arguably when Mr. Jim Lahey becomes the liquor. This is the episode where his uniform case gets smashed by Ricky and he gets drunk and decides he's going to put the uniform on and pretend to be a cop so that he can pretend arrest Ricky and Julian and put them in a makeshift jail. And it's great. I fucking love this episode. Definitely started to like Jim a lot here for this over-the-top persona, but obviously he can only be the liquor for so long before everything goes wrong, okay? So we knew this wasn't going to be a long-standing thing and soon he'd be back to his old goody-goody antics. It's an important episode because I think it's when, after everything has gone down and Julian doesn't rat Lahey out to the actual police, he also gets him his badge back, his police badge, which got confiscated from him because obviously you can't go around drunk impersonating a police officer. After Julian did all that for Jim, whether Julian did it for his own personal gain or not, I don't think Jim really saw that, and I think this is when he started to really see Julian as an ally, as maybe even a little bit of a friend. Maybe not a friend at the minute, but like as a potential friend, maybe. A bond has been stricken between them, maybe. That's how Jim feels anyway. Before this, there was an uneasy alliance because they both knew that Jim needed Julian around to keep Ricky under control, even if he didn't necessarily want Julian around either. But from this point on, I think Jim has this kind of like newfound respect for Julian because there was no reason in Jim's eyes that Julian should go out of his way for him like that, I guess. I like this episode a lot because it's like starts the seeds of the idea that the park wouldn't work without all of them there. And this is something that I really like. Like even though Lahey&Randy and Ricky and Julian are antagonistic towards each other, the whole park wouldn't function, it wouldn't be the same without them. This is the first episode where that dynamic is really explored, where Jim being out of control and being the liquor is not good for anyone. It's good for the boys when Lahey is his usual self and he's a little bit bumbling and silly and not taking ridiculous gun violence actions. Fucking love that scene where Julian and Ricky are trying to escape out the back of the fucking trailer and they say act like we're still here to Bubbles, and Bubbles is putting on these fucking terrible voices and Lahey goes, "Bubbles, is that you?" Like, no. The bit where it cuts to Julian and Ricky in the jail wearing the gag balls. Peak comedy. Physical comedy of Trailer Park Boys is one of my favourite things, and it's so hard to get clips of the specific things that make me laugh so hard, but if any of you are onto the bit where Jim opens the car door and the guy who just robbed the liquor store falls over it.
Shit!
Lahey, that guy just robbed the liquor store. You're a hero.
That guy fucking face plants the floor so hard, bro. And I'm into that shit. The last notable episode we will talk about is episode 8, which is the finale. This is a really good finale, actually. I quite like this one. Julian has been dating Erica. He buys the cruise ticket for her instead of Ricky, and Ricky ends up not having a ticket and therefore kind of can't go on the cruise. Ricky's been jealous of Erica this entire season, and you know, some people in the fandom will have you believe this is because he's in love with Julian. And I don't want to speak to that either way. But also because he doesn't like Julian's relationship with Erica. He sees it as like this betrayal to their lifestyle and to him. He knows that like they're not going to be able to get on with their regular activities if Julian's got a cop girlfriend, okay? And he also knows that Julian's not being true to himself. So I think that, you know, on some level, Ricky also knows that this isn't going to fucking work. So he's like, why are you even bothering, bro? Because Ricky is the way he is and he's, you know, often quite childish. He lashes out the way that he is wont to do and goes about the town trying to break the law and get arrested so that he can go to jail while everybody else goes on this cruise. It's really funny. Okay, it is funny that Ricky's going around trying to get arrested and it's not working, but it's one of those things where, again, if you think about it for a minute, it's really sad. Obviously, Ricky doesn't want to be at the park alone while everybody else is having fun on this cruise that he's been working so hard to go on for all this time. Like, that'd suck. But it's also like, why does Ricky want to go back to jail? Why is that his first response when he gets upset by something? Is it because, you know, since Ricky's like such this simplistic guy and because he's been in and out of jail so many times, maybe it's like jail's the only place where he feels comfortable, you know? Like, jail's the only place where he knows the rules, where things are easy, where he understands what is expected of him, right? Outside in the world, everybody's always telling him how to live his life, even though he's perfectly happy living it the way that he is, okay? Maybe jail's just a fucking little bit of an escape for Ricky. Maybe Ricky wants to go back to a place where he feels like he's in control, bro. And maybe I'm thinking too much into this, but that's what I'm here for. I love the way the chaos ramps up in this episode. Ricky's going around doing more and more dramatic shit, and Bubbles and Julian are following on his trail, just like one calamity behind him every time. So they've got to kind of make up for the crimes that he's committing as they're going along to try and stop him from actually going to jail. It makes me very anxious, so because obviously I don't want Ricky to get arrested because he's having a bit of a tantrum. There's some really good writing here because obviously we are expecting Ricky to eventually do something that gets not just him but Julian and Bubbles arrested so that nobody's going to go on the cruise, and it's a complete subversion of what you were expecting to happen when actually Ricky steals a bank machine, and when Julian is trying to break it open, the police ink or whatever it's called goes all over him, Lahey and Randy, and so the three of them are the ones who ended up getting arrested, despite Julian trying to stop Ricky getting arrested this whole time and Lahey and Randy doing basically nothing wrong. Is it great that Ricky doesn't go to jail after trying so hard to get arrested? But because Jim and Randy go to jail, he's the one who ends up getting the trail park supervisor job because he obviously had the experience at the beginning of the series. So after this whole time, these whole 3 fucking seasons, bro, of everybody telling him he's a loser, and after the reiteration of this point at the beginning of the episode when Lahey tells him that he's a loser, Ricky goes on to be the only one who doesn't fucking go to jail. And he ends up with Lahey's job. He ends up better off and he gets to stay and look after his kid and be there for her and stop her becoming a shit apple, which is, you know, the lesson he learned over the course of the episode, which was really nice and wholesome. I love the bit where they're interviewing Corey and Trevor, and Trevor's like, Ricky kind of freaked out and threw a turkey.
Ricky kind of freaked out and threw a turkey, which might have gone through a windshield of one of the cop cars, they're saying.
You just see it go through the windshield of this fucking police car, bro. I love the way that that Bubbles and Julian distract Ricky in the shop so that they can get him out of there before he gets arrested, is to say, when did they bring out dope flavoured rum? I think that's definitely something that I would fall for myself. Of course, when Ricky tries to get back into the trailer park, because Leahy's got this whole thing going on where he's trying to evict him in this episode that's not going very well. When he tries to get back over the line that Leahy's told him he can't cross back into the trailer park, Leahy tells Randy to call the police and he says, tell them we've got an illegal alien trying to jump the border. The way that he is so dramatic about everything just really gets me every time, bro. I think it's great. Some of my little notes for the season. I like how at the beginning, before Ricky comes back to the park, Lucy and Sarah, despite having an argument kind of at the end of last season because Ricky had been dating both of them separately, but obviously they were friends and that's kind of against the girl code or whatever. In Ricky's absence, they've kind of come back together and retroactively blamed Ricky for everything that is wrong in their lives, and I think that's it's a really realistic depiction of what happens when you leave women alone together. It is unfortunate for Ricky because they have made him into this villain. These girls, yeah, they do often try to like put responsibility and like adulthood onto Ricky, and I do understand that Ricky is an adult, but man, he's so dumb. Like, can we really expect him to act like a grown man? Really? There's a lot of really great dramatic irony in this series, and I'm pretty sure I've talked about a lot of it, but like one of my favourite moments, I talked about the walkie-talkie being a symbol of Lahey's respect and love for Randy, okay? And obviously when Ricky takes over as assistant trailer park supervisor, Lahey gives him Randy's walkie-talkie. Randy sees this and he gets jealous. He starts feeling all these emotions, like obviously he's being replaced by Ricky in his job, so maybe he's getting worried that he's gonna get replaced in Lahey's heart by Ricky, you know what I mean? And then so later in the episode, when we see Ricky get stung by poison ivy and Lahey start to take his shirt off, we're like, oh no, where is Randy right now? And I think that's so fucking great. And of course Randy does see this and does kick off and think that something sexual is going on between Ricky and Lahey, which is, that's funny, bro. That's so funny. The series has always been a little bit silly. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to pretend for a second that this series has never been like a funny little comedy show that's got lots of silly moments in it. But in this season, I think that we really start to cross over that boundary into ridiculousness, and I personally love it. I know that a lot of people do enjoy the realism of Trailer Park Boys, and I do think that the series does oftentimes stay grounded in this realism, but I like a little bit of ridiculousness, and I think that if it's going to be on TV, like, come on, let's suspend our disbelief a tiny little bit, okay? I think it's because obviously Lahey gets so drunk that he becomes the liquor, and that's a whole ridiculous episode, and there's a lot of, like, Ricky-centric episodes, like the first episode and the finale especially are very Ricky-centric, and any episode that centers around Ricky is going to be a little bit chaotic anyway. So the season just had a lot of chaotic energy to it, and I love that. It's probably maybe my favourite season so far, even though I do love the first two because they're warm and cozy. This is like, this season's up my street, right? The I learned something today moments at the end of each episode, you know, where we kind of reel back and get a wholesome moment to round everything off. They've been replaced with like last second gags in a lot of places. I don't like that. I liked the little wholesome moments at the end of the episode because I thought that added a little extra layer of silliness, like as if we were trying to cap a moral on the end of this story about criminals. There were a lot of wholesome moments in the show, like there's a lot of Ricky and Trinity moments in this series that I really like when he's teaching her how to steal tires off cars. I think that's pretty cute. There's no outside threat in this season. They probably thought it would be boring to just bring in an outside threat this time, so we've just got a lot of Lahey developments as a little antagonist, ongoing kind of thing. The whole saving for the cruise thing allows us to have a clear goal for the end of the season, but to also still allow the episodes to feel episodic, right? Because we can go out on these random little adventures to raise money for the cruise, okay? So it feels like we have a greater purpose while still sticking to the kind of random feel that we have to keep going with in order to make it feel like real life because it's a mockumentary. I think this is a Corey and Trevor standout season. I really thought they had some great moments in this season, and I really love the pair of them anyway. One of my favourite moments, though, is when Trevor fails the aptitude test for the assistant trailer park supervisor job and just runs off like as a spoiled child, going, "Fuck you, Mr. Lahey," and then Corey, like, runs after him. Oh, I love them. And then this series has some of the best uses of Lahey&Randy saying they're practicing for a play at the Blandford Rec. Not least to the outing scene, but like obviously when they're pretending to be police officers and the actual police come, they both chime in together at the exact same time saying they're practicing for this play. And I just think that's really funny. It's just, this season really started to put the boys and Randy and Lahey on the same level and to show that they were just as bad as each other and they could stoop just as low as each other, but it was like Lahey and Randy's morals that kind of keep them up here from like stooping as low as the boys can go. That's all I've got for season 3, so I'm gonna go and roll an 8-paper joint or some shit, bro. Bye.